that occur after death. So you see, this is now the science of death now. So here you're not doing the investigation, you're looking at the scientific bit of death. What are the physiological changes in a dead body? What are the pathological changes? What are the biochemical changes that occur after injury, after death, sorry. So it normally encompasses understanding postmortem changes. And which are these postmortem changes that we look at? We have algomotis, which is body cooling. We have rigomotis, and we also have livermotis. So blood settling on the lower extremities or muscle stiffening, that is rigomotis. We also have the decomposition process, which is putrefaction, where now you have the bacteria taking advantage of the dead body of the corpse, and also other biological and forensic aspects surrounding the death. So thanatology is, you're just looking at the science of death, the body changes, the biochemical changes that are normally seen in a dead body. So why is thanatology significant? Because it is integral to medical legal investigations, since it will assist in estimating the time of death and understand the circumstances leading to death. So estimating the time of death, understanding the circumstances leading to death, those are the two critical points for thanatology. So medical legal autopsy is what you are doing following death, and it's normally sought for by the legal authorities. It helps in investigation because you're going to find maybe things in the dead body. It could be traces of poison, it could be toxins, it could be stab wounds, and you're going to classify them. But now thanatology is the science, because this normally happens in every dead body. The science behind it, things like now body cooling, stiffening of the muscles, and also decomposition. And of course, following death, we have this legal document that is normally issued by a competent authority. And this particular document is the death certificate. This one is normally used to certify the fact that a person has died. So this is just the same way you have an identity card that shows you have attained the age of 18 and above. The only legal document recognized in the country that is used to indicate the fact that a person has died is the death certificate. This document verifies key information, including the identity of the deceased, precise date, time of death, cause of death, and the place where death occurred. And when you're writing the cause of death, it's normally written in two sections, or it's divided into two parts. You have part 1 and 2. Part 1 normally records the immediate cause of death, while part 2 lists the other significant conditions that contributed to the death. So for example, if you are writing the cause of death, if you can just scroll down, you see where we have the example for the cause of death: acute myocardial infarction due to coronary artery disease. So you're having two parts: the cause and what brought about that particular cause. So the cause of death is normally divided into two parts: acute myocardial infarction that was brought about by coronary artery disease, as an example. So if I can go back, death certificate. So we are saying that it is the legal document that certifies the fact that a person has died. And in the country, which is Kenya, Some of the key elements that are involved or that are found in a death certificate are the district and province of death. Maybe that one has changed due to the county or the devolution that we are seeing now. Some time back, we had the former provinces and districts, the exact place of death, full name of the deceased as per the identity card, the sex, the age, and occupation of the deceased, date of death and date of registration, name and address of the applicant, so the person who is applying for this particular component, the cause of death section that is divided into two parts. For the burial permit, not as much, but in some cases you may have that particular info, but this one is normally given separately. Then the signatures of the informant, registration, the registering officer, and the approvers. So a typical Kenyan death certificate includes cause of death, written in a medically precise manner. And the cause of death, I've already said, that is normally divided into two parts. So you have the cause and what contributed to the cause. That's how the cause of death is written. Why is the death certificate important, ladies and gentlemen? The death certificate form must be completed legibly, accurately, and submitted timely for official registration. And the significance of this is that legally they are required for estate settlement. So if you have maybe parents, then they die, that particular property that they have can be transferred to you as the child or children. So it can be used to settle estates. You can use it to transfer property so that it is actually showing that this property belong to this individual who has since died and we are the beneficiaries if you are the kids. You can also use it to claim for insurance monies, and also the high courts, the courts that we have in the country actually appreciate the legal basis of death certificates. So it can be used in court proceedings as well. And also it's a way in which you can prove that somebody for a fact died. That's the only time you are given a death certificate. But we all know that in this country, everything is possible, isn't it? You've heard of people coming up or creating their own death certificates or killing other people in courts to an extent whereby they even have a death certificate produced due to corruption. Maybe you're looking for a way of getting some help money. So you lie that your parents are no longer alive and you forge their death certificates. The bad thing about that is if you are caught, you can imagine the extent with which that particular thing will be extremely harmful to you. The public health authorities also use death certificates for vital statistics because they need to have documentation and also statistics for the birth rate, death rate, kadhalika. So these ones are the ones, these certificates or these documents are the ones normally being utilized as a way of getting to know the number of people that have died in a certain region, in a certain county now for our case. You can use it to perform epidemiologic surveillance if it's looking at monitoring disease patterns that are linked to occupations or environmental factors. So if you're looking at maybe there's a certain disease that has actually been causing some mortality, you can actually look at it and monitor and track the different disease patterns or death rates, as it were, in certain regions. And also, it normally provides closure to families because this is a permanent official record. Uh, and it's important to obtain certified copies for administrative processes. So the certificate normally provides closure to the individuals that are being left behind. So the types of autopsies, apart from the medical legal autopsy, which is normally carried out by the investigating authorities, you also have this clinical autopsy, which is normally done in most cases when there's no crime that somebody thought of. So you are just looking at maybe natural death. So you do a postmortem. So that one is what is called a clinical autopsy. So this one just is normally done to understand if that person for research or it should be used to get to understand certain concepts, be it biochemistry, be it anatomy, physiology, or pathology. You see, that is the clinical autopsy now. You're just doing it to understand the different body features, the physiology, maybe anatomy aspect as well. And it's normally done also in a hospital setting, but the focus is less on legal investigation and more on the pathological changes and disease progression. That's why here, for those individuals who want who want their bodies to be used as a specimen for studies, this is the angle that that particular postmortem takes. Then after dying, what normally happens to your body? So these are the postmortem changes. So the body is going first to cool. So you're having algomotis because the metabolic heat production will cease. You see, now you're not experiencing things like oxidative phosphorylation reactions in the mitochondria that generate ATP. You're not experiencing things like glycolysis, lipolysis, lipogenesis, all these biochemical reactions. And these biochemical reactions are the ones that produce heat. So when the metabolic production ceases, the body temperature is going to decrease gradually until it becomes equilibrium or it equates the ambient temperature or the room temperature. And the rate of cooling is normally about 1.5 degrees Celsius per hour in normal conditions, but it normally varies depending on the temperature, if the individual is wearing clothing or not. If the individual is in a cold environment, you can almost see that the body temperature will be dropping very fast. If the individual is in a very hot environment, the same is going to apply. So the rate of cooling will be slower. Body size also here will determine the rate of cooling. And how do you estimate the time since death occurred? So this cooling or postmortem cooling is what is normally used to kind of assess body temperature and estimate the time of death. Because if you're looking at an average of 1.5 degrees Celsius per hour after death as a cooling rate, you can use this information to estimate the time since death is facilitated by monitoring the body temperature drop postmortem. So algomotis involves dropping of the body temperature. averagely by 1.5 degrees Celsius per hour. Then livor mortis. So this one normally occurs because without circulation, blood circulation is going to stop. So the gravity is going to cause the blood to settle into the lower extremities or the dependent part of the body to produce some colored discoloration that is normally visible within 30 minutes to several hours post-mortem. Now, the pattern that you're going to see during livor mortis will be reflective of the position of the body after death, and it will become fixed in about 8 to 12 hours. So if you're looking at this particular diagram, you can see livor mortis. So if assuming the guy is in a standing position, and of course they're dead, you can see the blood is settling at the lower ends of this particular body. If it's rigor mortis, you're seeing stiffening of the muscles because of ATP depletion, which normally locks the actin and myosin. So this particular concept, you're going to see it between around 12 hours or so. Then with time, it's going to fade. So you're going to experience stiffening of the muscle so that if the body is dead in a certain position and 12 hours have elapsed, they're going to remain in that state. Then between a day to 2 days, 24 to 48 hours, that particular rigor mortis is going to fade away or is going to be removed now due to decomposition, because now the bacteria is taking advantage and the enzymes within the body are self-catalyzing. So it's like your enzymes are eating you up at that particular time. So these are the postmortem changes that take place in a dead body. So you have blood settling at the lower ends. So if the body is in a lying position, due to gravity, it's going to pick up the lower areas. The muscles are going to stiffen, and the body is going also to cool to the ambient temperature. Then decomposition begins, which is normally driven by bacterial activity that breaks down the tissues. There'll be gas production, there'll be greenish skin discoloration, bloating from gas accumulation, skin slippage, and a foul stench also produced. And this one will start in 3 days after death. We have factors that affect the rate of this particular component. We have temperature, we have moisture, and we have the environment as well that affects the rate of decomposition or putrefaction. So warm environments will speed up the bacterial growth. Well, but you see, this particular temperature is going to provide a very conducive environment for the bacteria to grow and the enzymes to act. So it's going to be faster, the rate of decomposition in a warm environment. Cooler temperatures tend to slow down microbial action, thus delaying putrefaction. This is why bodies in the tropical climates show putrefactive changes sooner than those in the cold climates. Because in the warm climates, you have the conducive environment for bacterial growth and enzyme activity. Same thing you see with moisture. Dry conditions will slow putrefaction due to desiccation of tissues and also due to inhibition of microbial growth. But where we have adequate moisture, this aspect is going to support growth of bacteria, thereby leading to tissue breakdown. chapter 3, part of the outline. So, any questions from there?
Hello, Doc.
Yes.
So I had two questions. Number one, I wanted to know maybe the algomotives effectiveness in determining time of death, maybe for bodies that died maybe more than 24 hours ago.
Let me write it down. Can you repeat your question?
Algomotives effectiveness in the determination of time of death for bodies that maybe died.
Okay, that is one. I think you had two. Now, as you think of the second one, you're right. You see, the postmortem cooling of the body is useful, but it's limited when it comes to determining time of death. The only way it will assist you is that you're going to know if the body has cooled to the ambient temperature. You can do some pretty guess looking at the 1.5 degrees per hour of the rate of cooling, because we say that algomotis is the gradual cooling of the body after death, and that cooling normally happens until it gets to the surrounding temperature. So algomotis normally provides a rough estimate of this particular time of death, especially when you're looking at the first 12 hours. It is more accurate at that particular time. But you see, you in your example, you've talked about 24 hours. So it may not be highly accurate. So you do this alongside other postmortem changes. So you don't use it as a standalone now. You see, like things like rigor mortis now, liver mortis, decomposition, something like that. So
Okay,
normally, pardon?
I've understood that. Like now, you mean that
Mm,
more effective in the first 12 hours.
yes, because you're
Yeah.
right. If
Then,
you look at 24 hours, many other things might
yeah.
have happened. Yeah.
Okay. Then the last question is the role of postmortem is to determine maybe the time of death and some things of the sort. Now, for the like causes of death and time of death, that's the role of postmortem. Now, for deaths that, for example, the example you gave of MP was shot to death. So, like we already know, like the cause of death is maybe the bullet the MP was shot, and people know when the person was shot. Like now, why do they do the postmortem? Because postmortem is to determine the cause and type. So now this one, for example, like the cases of road traffic accidents, like everyone, like it is known that it is an accident, like a person has died due to an accident or a bullet shooting. Now, like, why do they do such postmortem?
Yeah. So you see, postmortem, uh, you have to look at now the objective now. You are talking about they've been shot dead. But you see, in most
Yes.
cases, somebody might have witnessed that. So you have witness accounts. But now, on the legal basis, so you have to look at the legal basis in our jurisdiction now, the Kenyan legal forensic context, the Kenyan legal and the forensic context. So it is a requirement that when that happens in our jurisdiction, you need to do the postmortem, in as much as maybe you already know what happened, even if it's obvious that the person was shot dead. Because that particular postmortem or autopsy serves to be a confirmatory aspect that gunshot wounds are indeed the cause of death and not any other factor. You see, you could be looking at maybe, are you looking at heart attack as another factor? Or maybe there was internal bleeding from blunt trauma or poisoning before you were shot. Look at an example whereby you do a postmortem, then maybe there are traces of poison also found in your body. But this person was also shot, because you can be in a situation whereby maybe you wanted to commit suicide, so you took some poison. Then during that phase whereby you are now getting into the death process due to poisoning, you are shot dead. So you look at now, or the fact that you died of that. So you see, when you do that, you're like kind of looking at, are there any other components found in the body apart from the fact that this individual was shot dead? You're getting my point?
Yeah, I'm getting.
Yeah, so you're trying to look at, is it the only reason why? Or maybe there are some things or underlying factors in the body. Then, thank you. And you've also heard, when you are doing such kind of autopsy, it has to be also backed up by things like spent bullet cartridges, or maybe bullet fragments, you see, so that there is that particular confirmation. Another question?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
My question was on lividity, and the question was
Your question was
on lividity, the
okay.
liver motive.
Liver motives,
How is it precisely used to determine the time of death? Does it have a time for settling? And the other question still on lividity. If a body was killed and then moved, will lividity give essential details about that, or will you use another aspect?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So liver motives, as what you've seen, or lividity, is one of those particular postmortem changes that, yes, it's normally used to estimate the time of death. One of the key components of this postmortem change is that you are most likely to see some discoloration, some. Let me just scroll down where we were talking about the liver motives. Yeah, the purplish red discoloration. And you see, this normally appears on the dependent parts or the lower parts of the body. Why does this happen? Due to gravity, of course. So you'll look at this in terms of, there's normally a rubric that normally assists in that, because this particular discoloration normally starts appearing within 30 minutes. So the extent of the discoloration now increases. So it becomes more pronounced as you tend towards now hours. Like you're seeing there, the pattern of lividity reflects the body's position after death, and it becomes fixed in about 8 to 12 hours. So by the time lividity is pronounced, you could be estimating that here, this death might have occurred between 8 to 12 hours ago. I don't know if you're getting my point, because after 12 hours, this particular lividity is fully developed. So there'll be no more changes. So you can use that to estimate the time.
I've gotten that.
Then there was, pardon?
I've gotten that point.
Kindly remind me the second question. As I was explaining, I think I forgot.
Yeah,
I think you were talking about movement. Huh?
Yeah, if there is movement of the body after death, will lividity give any details about that?
I am not so sure. I'm trying to see, because if, but I think it will affect, because you see, you are looking at the body. If the body is stationary, the blood starts settling to the bottom parts. So it means as long as you move the body before lividity becomes fixed, that particular lividity is going to be affected. So it's going to be affected by the way. But if it's after 12 hours, I don't think it's going to be affected, because now it will be, lividity will be fully pronounced as at that particular time. But if you're looking at maybe death that occurred 2 hours ago, then you move the body, like what we see at times, maybe a dead body has been picked by the police and somebody maybe died an hour or 30 minutes ago or 2 hours ago. You see, lividity is not fully pronounced as at that particular point. That means when you reposition the body, the gravity again will cause the blood to drain from the original dependent areas and it will settle now to the new area. But if it's after 12 hours, because of lividity at that particular point, and you remember now there's no metabolic process taking place. So after that, there'll be fixed lividity. It won't change after that particular time. So movement will be affected if the lividity is not pronounced or is not fixed. You're seeing in the sentence there, we are having fixed and unfixed. But if it's after 12 hours, there'll be no changes after that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you also for explanation.
Asante sana. Another question? I don't know. I think I heard something. Hillary, please proceed. Or who is asking the question? I'm seeing some hand is raised here. Oh, there's a question that is asked here by, let me open the charts. For Raila Odinga, the autopsy has not been made public. And I think this happens because of now you're looking at ethical issues around death. You know, death is something that is so emotive, so people will not to be private about it. There's a question here. How is it possible to use cooling method to determine the cause of death in circumstances where the patient was hypothermic while near death? So I think this you're looking at maybe in the cold, it's cold. So determining that could be a challenge. I don't know, what does anyone think about that? Because my feeling is that, you see, the environment is already so cold. Maybe if you're looking at, maybe it's during winter. So in as much as somebody would want to use it, I feel that its reliability and accuracy will be greatly reduced because of the environmental temperature is going to affect it. So for me, I don't think that will be accurate now, because it's like if you have some hot tea and you're in a very cold environment, maybe a place like Limuru or Molo, You see, the rate with which this particular tea is going to drop in temperature is going to be so high because of the environmental temperature, the ambient temperature. So it will get cooler much faster than if you are in a warm environment. So my thinking is that here you're going to encounter problems because the environment is already affecting that. It won't be an accurate way of measuring. Yes, question from Ivan. These particular changes normally occur in death. Whether you died from suicide, you died from heart attack, gunshot wound. See, now this is the science of death. So these ones are not affected. Those changes have to take place like that. Yeah, Kennedy, I can see your question. Instances where someone is murdered, wrapped in a black plastic bag. Yeah, cooling will still take place. Actually, you've inserted this particular person in a freezer. So the cooling will take place. The stiffening of the muscles will take place because you see what you are doing here is you've reduced the rate of decomposition, but you have not stopped the decomposition process from taking place. So decomposition will still occur. Like if you ask me, let's say you buy some meat from a butchery, then you place it in a freezer in January 1st, 2025, 1st of January, assuming that there's nothing like a power blackout, power outage, or anything. Do you still mean to tell me that if you go back on December 31st, 2025, that meat will still be viable for consumption? No. That's how you look at it now. So the freezing aspect, you're looking at reducing the rate of decomposition. That's what you are doing actually, but you're not stopping the decomposition process. Yeah, Ruth, I can see your question. So just like the analogy I gave with regards to if you have some hot tea and you are in the coldest of environments, the rate of cooling will be faster than if you're in a warm environment. So the rates will differ in as much as algomotis will still take place. So the rate will be dependent on the environment as well. You're seeing this second sentence here. The cooling rates averaging around 1.5 degrees Celsius per hour in normal conditions varies depending on factors such as the ambient temperature. You are seeing now factors that affect this particular statistic. So the environment, the temperature in the surrounding environment will affect the rate of cooling. So in as much as cooling is taking place, we have factors that will affect the rates. So the rates will differ based on factors such as the ambient temperature. So those are wonderful questions, by the way. Then the final bit now is the cause and mechanism and manner of death. So the cause of death is the specific disease or injury or condition that directly initiates the sequence of physiological events resulting in death. You see, when you talk about myocardial infarction, which is the medical term for heart attack, see, that's the cause. Gunshot wound to the head, cause. Drug overdose. So you're looking at that specific disease or specific injury or specific condition that directly initiates failure, inability to breathe. So you see now that's the mechanism. But if you are shot in the head, that is the cause. So gunshot wound can lead to cerebral herniation, which is the brain pressure now. So the brain pressure is the mechanism. But what brought about this brain pressure? The gunshot wound. Exsanguination, which is also known as massive blood loss, is a mechanism of death. But what triggered this particular blood loss? Maybe gunshot wound, or maybe you are stabbed on the abdomen by a kitchen knife, things like that. So the mechanism explains the physiological or biochemical abnormalities caused by the cause of death that actually leads to death. So, ladies and gentlemen, you should be able to distinguish these particular components. What stimulated the sequence of events? What are the sequence of events? Then you're looking at the manner of death, which classifies the circumstances or intent behind the cause of death. It gives context to whether death was due to natural causes, intentional acts, or an accident. So when you're classifying manner of death, it could be natural, maybe disease, or you're aged. It could be a road accident, so death resulting from unintentional injury, or poisoning when harm was not intended. Like, for example, we know of carbon monoxide poisoning. Now, somebody might be sleeping in a room that is not well ventilated. So they are not, they may not know that they are sleeping next to some GECO that is still on. So you are having a lot of CO being produced, carbon monoxide. So you see, it's going to be poisoning, but it's not intended. So that is an accident. So this is normally death resulting from an intentional injury or poisoning. Then you have suicide, which is death caused by intentional self-inflicted injury or poisoning with the intent to die. So you see, for suicide, there has to be some self-inflicted injury or poisoning. So there has to be an intent that you want to die. That's how you classify this. The other one that is an accident is unintentional. Then you have homicide, which is death caused by the deliberate act of another person. And some of these particular deaths can be inconclusive, where the evidence is not conclusive. So undetermined is used when evidence is inconclusive. The manner cannot be confidently assigned. There was this time I was watching some documentary. So this couple had gone to some forest somewhere in the US. Then they did not come back. Those people were looked for. A search team was dispatched, and these individuals walitafutwa kabisa. It took like 4 or 5 months. Then, because this was unsuccessful, the authorities left it at that. Then years later, some tourists were visiting the place and they found some skeletons. Remember skeletonization? Then the forensic odontologists, they odontologists, whereby you're using the bones to determine and do some background check. It gave conclusion that these particular individuals were the ones who were looked for some years ago. But you see now, determining their cause of death was difficult because now you're dealing with skeletons now. So you're not able to assign the cause of death. So that one becomes undetermined. For homicides like the one for the late MP Ongondowere, that is homicide. There was a deliberate act of another person shooting him. We all know what suicide is. Accidents, things like road accidents, maybe falling from a steep point without you knowing. That's an accident. Unnatural as well. Solely due to disease or aging process without an external cause. I don't know if there's a question. I think I've heard something. Somebody has raised their hand. Hillary. Hillary, proceed.
Okay, I wanted to know where euthanasia falls.
Well,
Euthanasia.
now you see, euthanasia, that one is legally appreciated within the Kenyan jurisdiction. So that one will be classified as natural. Because you see, when you're talking about euthanasia, the thinking is that this person is in a vegetative state already. So they're only being supported by the fact that they are placed in a machine. Well, the moment you switch off that machine, this particular person is dead. So either way, they're not coming back. And most likely, it could be due to the natural causes that brought about that particular condition. It could be road accident that made them vegetative. It could be disease. I remember the late MP Ken Okoth had cancer that had progressed, I think, up to stage 4. So this person was in the hospital setup. There's no way of coming back. So that one is appreciated. That one can't be classified as suicide because it is appreciated legally that there's nothing you can do about it. You see, for suicide, there's something you can do about it. If you don't intentionally inflict yourself with an injury or poison, you're not going to die. But this other one, there's nothing you can do about it. So that one will fall under natural. So just to try and put this into perspective, when a person has a natural disease but dies because of a related accident, the manner of death is classified as accident, not the natural disease. The disease was not the cause of death. For example, if someone suffers a heart attack while swimming and then drowns, the death is going to be classified as accident in this particular case, because you're going to think this way. Were it not for this particular individual being in water, maybe they might have survived. You see, that's how you look at it. Because the heart attack came about while this individual is swimming. So you see, the environment assisted in the drowning aspect. So that one will be classified as an accident. This follows a modified but for test. So meaning what? But for the accident, which is drowning in water, death might not have occurred at that time or in that way. Because maybe you might have gotten the heart attack, but you are not in water. So maybe there could be some emergency, you could be rushed to the hospitals and you could be saved. You've heard of things like that. But now imagine you're suffering a heart attack and you're at the deep end of the pool. You see now how the environment has assisted in this particular individual dying. So that one will be classified as an accident because of the environment that assists in this particular death. So the hostile environment contributes significantly to the death's timing and circumstance, making accidents the appropriate manner rather than natural. If you're looking at classification of death as suicide, it requires that evidence supporting intentional self-harm. So there has to be an intent that you want to kill yourself. So the intentional self-harm causing death must exceed the preponderance of proof of threshold. So this one means the moment when you're doing the investigation, it is beyond reasonable doubt that we are seeing intentional self-harm. And the threshold here is now more than 51% likelihood. That one will be classified as suicide. For example, if somebody, okay, not even somebody, recently, I think it was last week here, I don't know if you heard, there's somebody who threw themselves from the Basin Mall. They went to the KRA. I think they were seeking some way of having their loans paid, or they were owing the KRA some money to the tune of 300 million. So they wanted it to be restructured in such a way that he could be paying it. But the KRA officers could hear none of it. So he decided to commit suicide by climbing up the floors. I don't know which floor it was. Then they threw themselves. You see, if you look at that, there's proof beyond reasonable doubt that this individual wanted to cause self-harm. You see, to an extent whereby he left the car keys to the watchman, telling him that my son is going to come here and pick the vehicle. There are cases whereby somebody throws themselves into the deep end of the swimming pool, and they're not even in a swimming costume, they're just in street clothes, and they drown and die. That is an intentional self-harm. So there has to be a threshold whereby you are seeing this extremely high level of intent here. Now, this scenario whereby somebody drinks poison and then throws themselves in the deep end of the swimming pool, the manner of death also here will be classified as suicide. Why? Remember, in suicide cases, we are looking at intentional self-harm. So there's a high threshold there. The fact that you're drinking poison, it means you're looking at mechanisms of inflicting harm to yourself. The fact that you're throwing yourself in the deep end of the swimming pool, you're actually exacerbating this particular process. So there's a lot of intention to cause self-harm or death. So both actions show intent to end someone's life, satisfying the criteria for suicide. The poisoning and drowning may both be causes or mechanisms of death, but the underlying manner reflects intentional self-inflicted harm. So that one will become suicide now. So in suicide cases, there has to be intentional self-infliction of harm. And we've seen this time and time again. Homicide is a manner of death defined by the presence of a volitional act by another person that causes the death. So there's that willful act. So there's intent to kill. For example, if someone unintentionally causes death by a deliberate act, maybe you fired a gun without the intent to kill, but resulting in death, the death will be classified as a homicide because of the willful act that you have. So there's intention to harm another person. Hence, homicide focuses on causation by another person's action, not legal guilt or intent. So if you're looking at that particular aspect, if there was no gunshot, maybe there will be no death that you're looking at. Actually, most likely we won't be dealing with death. It's like maybe you've stabbed somebody in the hand. The thinking here was to harm them, but now they undergo massive blood loss, what we are calling exsanguination. To an extent, now it results in death. That one will be classified as homicide because of your action of stabbing this particular individual. Assigning manner of death as undetermined occurs if competing manners of death have similar evidentiary support, or the facts are insufficient to conclusively determine natural, accident, suicide, or homicide. Like the example I gave, whereby some individuals had died in some forest somewhere, then their remains were brought about, or they were found years later, whereby skeletonization had occurred. It's difficult to assign the cause of death here. So that's just a table explaining what we've talked about. Then the final part is examining unidentified bodies. These ones normally bring about challenges, by the way, because you don't know who you are dealing with. The individual, maybe you found a dead body, it needs to be identified. But unidentified bodies present unique challenges since we don't have personal information of the dead bodies or identity documents available, like those individuals who died in the woods. So decomposition, trauma, or absence of witnesses further complicates confirming identity or determining the cause and manner of death. So normally in developed jurisdictions, there's normally a registration and temporary identification of this dead body. So it's normally tagged, it's given a number or a unique identifier, where it was found, where the dead body was found, the location, what were the physical conditions of the dead body. Then it will be carried and taken to the forensic lab for forensic examinations. And things like fingerprinting, photography, and personal effects, if they are found, will be taken care of. So fingerprints of the body will be taken. Of course, photography is a mechanism of taking evidence. So you capture evidence using photographs. This one, I think we all know. This is normally done by forensic experts. Then any unique thing that you find, you see when you're taking photographs, the body, the face, maybe if there's a tattoo, you take the photo of the tattoo. That's the identification marks. If you find personal belongings, maybe a bag, a watch, catalog of the clothing and personal effects of this particular dead body have to be taken. Then the forensic odontology now begins, and forensic anthropology, whereby you're using the skeletonized remains or decomposed remains of these individuals to try and establish a biological profile. So these things are normally found, especially in the developed countries, where systems are working, where we have sophisticated technology being in place. So all these techniques are going to be carried out. And finally, DNA profiling, because you see in these jurisdictions, once you enter there, you are going to have your DNA profiles taken, be it fingerprints, samples from your blood to aid in things like paternity tests, etc. But fingerprinting is a critical thing. That's why you see in the crime scenes, fingerprints are normally taken to assist in determining perpetrators of crime. Then they use some software known as AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Information System, to run the fingerprints that they collected in the crime scene. And they look for a match from the computer. So it means all your fingerprints are taken and they are stored in a database. So these one normally aids these particular individuals in identifying suspects. In Kenya, we have the fingerprints being taken, but the systems are still being developed. So that means we do not have a database where all our fingerprints are that can assist during crime scene investigation. So these particular components are being developed. I believe we have the National Crime Research Laboratory. Maybe nowadays it will be something that they are working on, so that when you're picking your certificate, you're applying for a good conduct. You see, your fingerprints are taken, then they'll maybe find a way in which they can match with whatever they have from their end. So these are some of the procedures that are normally used in identification of unidentified bodies. So there's a protocol for handling these particular bodies. So that is lecture 4. So there are sample questions I'm going to send to you to assist you in revision for the other topics. Then we are remaining now with one, the introduction to toxicology. Then we call it a trimester. Any question? I'm seeing some questions here. So, in cases of delayed discovery, how can forensic pathologists distinguish between normal cooling and refrigeration artifacts? Now, this one they may not be able to identify unless during investigation, when now the police are actually looking for the suspect, they get to find bodies in a refrigerator. That's the only way. But if you pick it outside, it's difficult to ascertain this particular process, especially if you're looking at rigor mortis now, because you might remove the body from the refrigeration, then it takes maybe some time. Are you looking at maybe a month or so after that But you see now the rate of decomposition is going to kick in. So maybe getting to know that might be an issue, but now here the timing is what is critical here. So after refrigeration or not. So the timing here is going to be critical. What of a man dying in the line of duty, for example, those who misuse Viagra? I don't understand that question in relation to what we are dealing with. So dying in the line of duty in relation to Viagra, yes, but what is the question? I don't understand, Hillary, maybe clarify. Daktari, do you use Nigra? I don't even know what Nigra is. So maybe you can write in the chat there what Nigra is. Help me understand. Hillary.
Okay, maybe the question is on the mechanisms of death, whether accidental, natural, and so on.
Oh, okay. Now I get your question. So in relation to now that one will be if there, let me read again. In the line of duty, so you misuse Viagra. Now that one, you see, when you're using Viagra, the essence is not to intentionally harm yourself. So suicide is out of that. Undetermined is out of that. Homicide is also out. So that kind of DD, that kind of death will be an accident, because you see, we are talking about death resulting from unintentional injury. You taking the Viagra, your thinking was you want to maybe improve your performance or something like that. But now you triggered something else. It could be high blood pressure and things like that. So there was an unintentional injury. You did not intend to harm yourself. So that will be classified as an accident. Exactly. Mercy has written there, accident. Oh, Kennedy is asking if I'm using that. Now, Kennedy is not keen with us. I beseech you to ask questions based on what we've learned. It's not about me here. It's about what we are learning. For me, I'm a non-factor in this. So kindly direct your questions to what we are learning. You see, I can even not ask you such a question because it's none of my business. All of you are adults, so you know, you do what makes you happy. Hapo nitakuwa nimevuka mpaka if I'm asking you such a question. So I'll not be able to respond to that. So maybe another question. Francis is mentioning something here. Oh, Kennedy was answering Edwin. Okay. I don't know, maybe mtaelewana. I'm seeing Francis has written something here that maybe he is talking about sexual asphyxia by hanging. I don't understand sexual asphyxia, because when you're talking about asphyxia, here you are looking at a mechanism with which you have an issue with breathing now. So it's like maybe you have your inability to breathe properly. Now, when you say against sexual asphyxia, I don't understand. Maybe kindly help me understand that. I'm loving the fact that today you guys are so jovial with today's topics. You know, when you talk about asphyxia, you're looking at a way in which your tissues or your body is deprived of oxygen.
The sexual asphyxia by hanging. It was a book which I read about a male person who was found dead after and was found completely naked. And there were pornographic and magazines around the area, and the book was calling it like something like sexual asphyxia by hanging. So that I think maybe this person was hyperstimulated and maybe led to him committing suicide, something like that.
Oh, now I get your point. So you're looking at that scenario whereby this individual has a restricted oxygen supply, and they're looking at this to enhance their sexual arousal, something like that.
Yeah,
Okay, I get your point. So what about it? So now the question you're asking it where it falls.
yeah,
That one will be an accident. You see, if you want to know these things, you start by this. What is the intention of this particular individual? So in your example, the intention is to heighten their sexual pleasure, isn't it? That is their intent. But now, there's some activities that when you get yourself into, they result in what we call non-intended consequences. So when he was doing that, or when she was doing that, you also introduce strangulation to yourself. So there's airway obstruction. The intent was not to kill yourself. So you look at the intent first.
okay, understood.
But I'm loving your questions today. So accidents happen. If you want to know an accidental case, just look at, is there intention to inflict harm on oneself? If the answer is no, don't take it to accident. The moment you say answer is yes, that is suicide. What of a kid playing with a gun and accidentally kills the mom? Is it homicide or accident because there was no intent? Now, what is the age of the kid, Mercy? So you see how things now come to play. That is an accident. 10 years, uni accident. There's somebody has raised their hand. Kennedy, proceed.
Okay, you find a situation where somebody usually abuses drugs, then he is overdosed by somebody else. Now, during the investigations, how can we really determine, was it a suicide? Was it a homicide? Is there a way that you can be able to identify these two things? To differentiate between if it's an overdose induced by self or an overdose induced by somebody else?
Now, in such a case, thank you for the question. I don't know if if you've watched some of these documentaries. What they normally do first is that you reconstruct the crime scene. So if you find a dead body, okay, yes. Now, what happened? So you have to look at what are the things that you find in that particular crime scene, apart from the toxicology, forensic toxicology that you're going to do. If maybe there was somebody else that has been taken for questioning, maybe they might talk about, okay, I gave this guy some drink, but I'd laced it with that sildenafil or the Negra. Today I've learned something new. Now, if you're looking at the type or the dosage that was given, and forensic toxicology is performed whereby it is higher than the dose, then you see that one, there's high likelihood that the investigators will see there's a probability that this particular individual took some sildenafil elsewhere then there was another sildenafil dosage taken here. Now, kindly repeat your question. You want to know where it falls, the mechanism, the manner of death.
Yes, is it homicide or is it suicide or is it an accident?
It will be an accident.
Like he was overdosed by somebody else.
You're saying
Like
overdosed. You see, the moment
yeah.
you start saying overdosed, it means there's intention here to overdose.
So that is why I placed the question like this. You find somebody who's normally from is known to be a drug addict or a junkie, as they say in the streets. Then
Okay.
is found dead,
Mm-hmm.
and the toxicology report says that it was an overdose.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the overdose was somebody who overdosed him. So how are you going to figure out if it was an intentional overdose or is an intentional overdose for for suicide, or is it an accident, or was it a homicide? How can you differentiate between the three?
So what you'll do when the investigations are being done, is there a way in which during investigation a suspect has been found and they gave out statements to say they overdosed this particular patient? You see, now this is where investigations come into play. That's why categorizing death normally happens after investigation, not before. Are you getting my point? So a thorough investigation has to be done completely. Then from there is where now you make a determination for this. So you see, in your case, it is subjected to further investigations first. So that if the overdose, because there can be a drug overdose, but an accidental one. How? I take my fair share of sildenafil, then go and visit the person I'm supposed to meet. But this person I'm meeting also had plans with the sildenafil as well. So you see that one, there's going to be an overdose for the two. Now that one is accidental because neither of us knew of the intention. You see, the thinking here is an intentional injury. But now, if the investigations reveal that there was some intent by somebody to inflict this particular harm, now that one will go to homicide now. So you have to do further investigation. And this particular categories normally come about after a wholesome investigation has been done. Tuko pamoja? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, I think, is it Kennedy or who asked the question? Okay, it seems there's no other question. Or is there any question? Okay, Kennedy, I can see you've responded. So that's what will happen. So there has to be some further investigation done to actually verify that. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This was an interesting session. I think for the first time we took 1 hour, 20 minutes. So there are some questions I'm going to send to you for your revision. So I'm going to send to Cedric. So have a lovely evening, everyone.